Welcome to episode 213 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the smooth operating edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. That's more to do with one of the drivers I won this weekend, or maybe a few of the drivers I won this weekend. But hopefully it is a smooth ride here today on the GSP. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar, and somebody who just got off test track. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, ready to get into it. Of course, smooth operating seems like across all three series this past weekend, or at least all three main series that we talk about here. So, a lot of action there. Yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, it was a pleasant surprise when I turned the channel to the Australian Grand Prix and saw the smooth operator Carlos Sainz leading the Australian Grand Prix, and then not seeing fish lips anywhere, then seeing him at the bottom out of the race, then kind of having the terrible thoughts that I would have because I don't like him about how I'd want to see him hit a wall. But then instead, that was George Russell. He was the one that ended up having the bad crash, led because of Fred Alonso. But we'll get into all that. We'll talk about Carlos Sainz 2 weeks after appendix removal going and winning a Grand Prix, and the battle that Ferrari and McLaren had, which was very compelling. At the same time, Mercedes is absolute garbage, and Red Bull is what they are. They are absolute trash themselves. So plenty of drama outside of the track and even on the track with how bad of a product they put out there, especially with Mercedes. The Thermal Club $1 Million Challenge was definitely boring and definitely smooth for another Spaniard in two-time and defending IndyCar champion Alex Palou. Essentially won the race on Saturday when he won the pole in his heat and they ran the faster times because he didn't have to defend really against anybody. His ability to manage tires is well known, or it's becoming more well known, especially after racing 20 laps at Thermal Club and basically running away with another victory at and 500 grand, plenty of money for diapers and wipes and all that stuff, and dinners with his crew. Penske was up there, some other names that are usual names. Colton Herta decided to dump the first segment and try to come back. He basically made it halfway up the field. We'll get into all that and the people who actually made the real money, since IndyCar isn't going to be around for a while. And then we'll talk about all three major NASCAR series at Circuit of the Americas. William Byron dominated, the first repeat winner of the year in Cup. He had to battle a bunch of Toyotas and his teammate Alex Bowman late, but it was really not much drama, especially after the last pit stop when Ross Chastain and the Trackhouse team laid an egg on that particular pit stop while the Hendrick Motorsports team showed up. Christopher Bell had one of the fastest race cars in the racetrack, but in the process pissed off enough people, including Kyle Busch. The Fords were basically nowhere, which is becoming a common theme and is getting really old. But at least Chris Buescher got another top 10 on a road course, and Chase Briscoe got a top 15 out of a day that could have went a lot worse. We'll get into the Cup Series. The Xfinity Series was in Brett Hill parking his car in front of SVG, and in the process costing not only himself but SVG a chance at victory and allowing Kyle Larson to go past both of them and get that win. for Hendrick in the Xfinity Series. Van Gisbergen was one of the fastest cars the whole entire day in the Xfinity Series, and he was trying to get that win that would have locked him into the playoffs. Instead, he gets penalized for cutting the track, which Briscoe also got penalized, and it was selective, I think, at best, because they didn't call that penalty for a long time in the Cup race yesterday. The Truck Series race was Corey Heim dominating, and Connor Zilisch proving once again why he's basically one of the best prospects in motorsports, and why Justin Marks bought him too, because of how fast he is. Never driven a truck before, jumps in the Spire 7 truck and puts it on pole. Is just unbelievable. And if it weren't for some of the mistakes early in the race, who knows what might have happened for him. Got a top 5 finish out of it. So we'll talk about all that. The roundup is busy. F2, F3, and supercars were all at Melbourne for the Australian Grand Prix. MotoGP and Moto2 were at Portugal. Major controversy caused by Marc Marquez crashing into somebody. Where we've heard that before. Crashing into a fellow world champion. I don't know. He did it to one guy. Some people may know him. Now he's doing it to Pecco Bagnaia. We'll talk about World Superbikes at Barcelona, the Winter Nationals at Pamona, that whatever's left of eliminations is going to be raced at Phoenix. The Funny Car Final and I think Top Fuel Finals are amongst that. This coming weekend is a very limited weekend of racing due to Easter, of course. Rally Kenya for the WRC. Formula E will be in Tokyo, as George Takei would say. And Cup and Xfinity will be at Richmond. They'll be racing on Easter Sunday night. For whatever reason, they could have just ran on Saturday night like they used to for decades, or not raced at all. Believe me, I don't care. If you want to race, but I find it weird how they've decided that now we're going to race on Easter night, instead of just doing it in the middle of the day, when it's more likely to actually have a better race. Why wait till Sunday night and then you're going to have to go back to work, or people are going to have to call out? You put weather into play as well, if they have weather issues. So I don't know, but then that's NASCAR for you. We'll preview Cup and Xfinity. Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing in his sim segment, and we'll call it a day. So first of all, the smooth operator. Operator. Yeah, it was. And there's something crazy. Is like I don't know if it was foreshadowing that it played on the radio on one of our local radio stations, that the smooth operator came on earlier in the day, and I was like, oh, there's the Carlos Sainz song, and little did we know, a few hours later, Carlos Sainz would end up going ahead and winning the Australian Grand Prix. A huge deal for him, coming back from missing the race at Saudi. Oliver Bierman taking his place and scoring points on debut and almost making Q3. But Carlos Sainz, a guy who is a free agent, somehow, probably Ferrari made a mistake, but that's up to them. They've got an obsession with Charles Leclerc, and the part of it, I think, whoever I forget their team principal's name offhand, he got a thing with Leclerc for years, so they keep him around because he's just a nice guy, but you're getting rid of the guy who actually is the better racer in Carlos Sainz. He started second, I believe, yeah. He started second in the race, was a couple of hundredths off pole, and ended up getting the victory by 2.366 seconds and over Charles Leclerc, who got the fastest lap. Lando Norris ended up just under 6 seconds behind Sainz in third. Oscar Piastri was 30 seconds behind Norris in fourth. So the Australian fans, even though they had hope for a podium, still got a fourth place finish, though, for Piastri. Sergio Perez in the lone remaining Red Bull was a further 21 seconds behind Piastri in fifth. Stroll ended up sixth. Yuki Tsunoda seventh for not Minardi. And then Fernando Alonso, who we'll talk about a little later, ends up eighth. He was higher than that. I think he was going to finish sixth, so they got penalized. The two Haas cars get a point. Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen both score a point. Alex Albon in the lone remaining Williams, after what happened earlier in the weekend, falls just short of a points finish. You had 16 cars finish the race. As I mentioned, Fish Lips fell out of the race. He had brake issues with his right rear wheel. Basically said that he had a parking brake on and it kept on, it stayed on. In the process, it got so hot it caught fire, and then it was doing other things to where even Fish Lips couldn't drive his way out of that. It's interesting, a rare time that he actually has a challenge, and a mechanical issue came up. So Fish Lips falls out 3 laps into the race. First time in 2 years that he fell out of a race. Australia in 2022, last time. Chance to win 10 consecutive races for a second time. Fell away, but let's be fair, he's probably going to win 10 consecutive races, probably starting in Japan. And he'll win, I don't know how many races in a row. So, whatever, a rare weekend where we don't have to see that dipshit on the front. And then the two Mercedes end up falling out. Lewis Hamilton with an engine failure of some sort, and then George Russell, who wrecks on the final lap of the race in somewhat spectacular fashion, ending up on his side on the back, just on the first part of the back straight, and getting into it with Fred Alonso. I think Fred Alonso brake checked or braked early, and then Woody overdrove or lost control of his car and drove it through the sand trap, and in the process slammed the wall in a way that he flipped his car, broke off the one wheel to go, and because it stays tethered to the car, flipped him over. So a nightmare scenario for a Mercedes team that was definitely fourth or fifth best for the whole entire weekend. They were battling the Astons. They weren't able to really stay with them, at least with Fred. Counting against Stroll, who cares because he's a loser. But yeah, that was what it was for Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton, more despondent than I think I've ever seen him in years. Reminds me of 2009 when McLaren completely bottled the the new regulations and gave him an absolute tub of shit to drive for, I think, half a season as the defending world champion. This tub of shit, it really isn't going to matter because they're not going to win anything with it. And if I'm Carlos Sainz, I wouldn't sign with Mercedes because there's nothing that they've done over the last 3 years, counting this year, that makes me believe that they're going to be a contender again. Toto Wolff is trying to start, being more hands off. You don't have the people that were the key people that led to the Mercedes success. They're all elsewhere, it seems like. So, in all of that, Carlos Sainz gets the win, Josh. It's a big deal. Shows the resiliency of Carlos, the smooth operator, but also in general, just what Formula One is, where one race you're forgotten in a sense and you don't want to lose your ride. I mean, he already has lost his ride, but in theory, he's battling for another one and he wants to dictate where he goes. And winning Grand Prix is one way to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I think for Carlos Sainz, besides Max Verstappen, he's the guy who's last one in Formula One. He's the only guy besides Max Verstappen to actually go out and win a race, this year and last year. So, for Carlos, I mean, it's a great comeback because what he had experience with the emergency appendectomy there. So. With the appendix removal there. So, this was an important victory for him to get. And, of course, it was going to be a battle. It could have been a battle with Max Verstappen, of course, passed him on the second lap of the race, actually seeing an on-track pass for the lead in Formula One where somebody actually overtook Max Verstappen. Who would have thought that could happen? But, it was short-lived, of course, with Max dropping out with the brake failure there, so car smoking. So yeah, I guess more time for Max to go to his real job, which is iRacing with the guys on Team Redline. And yeah, Checo on the street courses as well last year. But besides, non Red Bull guys there. So let's remember that. But yeah, so of course Carlos, could he go to Mercedes to replace Lewis Hamilton? Suppose he could. Right now on paper, that's biggest available ride right now. But you have to wonder, given how Mercedes has performed so far to start the year, is that a downgrade from where he currently is in a Ferrari? And for Ferrari, obviously it's an opportunity to take Lewis Hamilton next year, but are they missing out on building something with Carlos Sainz over time? So that's something to think about as well, because he's the guy that's won for Ferrari, not not Charles Leclerc. So, like you said earlier, so that's something to think about, of course. But nevertheless, still pretty dominant win. But yeah, I think I saw some people talk about how once Max went out, like maybe there'd be a lot more compelling of race, which it kind of was with the battle between Ferrari and McLaren there. So that was interesting, but still, the leader was fairly dominant. So, I still think that the issues are really more of the car than, just the driver or the team being dominant. But, that's how it is. But you have to give a lot of credit to Ferrari there for bringing a good pace and being able to come out there with the win. So, surprising result there with Red Bull not winning, and Perez also finishing in fifth, never really challenged at all. Started sixth, fell back to seventh, and then made it up to fifth. So not really too much from the other Red Bull guy, but the Ferraris go out there 1-2, and then McLaren 3-4 there. So good result there down in Australia. But yeah, one thing, you talked about with George Russell crashing there on the final lap. Of course, Alonso got penalized to 8th place, which it was kind of interesting how I think it seems like, I guess, Alonso was trying to get a early brake early for the corner type, late or good exit off the corner and drive back away, kind of a driving tactic there. But I think with George Russell got too close and lost the handle there, lost the arrow there, and spun out and crashed into the barrier. So I think people are talking about whether it's a dirty tactic or not from Alonso there. Alonso of course went and had some explanation afterwards in the race on social media, and buy it or don't buy it. But I mean that's what he said and everything. So I mean it's an interesting penalty there, and I mean I'm not sure if he deserved it or not, but certainly could have handled that one better, I guess, and not put a guy in a situation like that, and similarly like in open wheel cars where if you take the nose off of the air off their nose, they're going straight to the wall or out of the groove at least. So, and that's what we saw there. And when people do that, IndyCar drivers talk about it a lot on the ovals, where if you take the air away from the other guy, it's kind of considered a dirty move, and that I guess kind of in a way was the same thing here. Maybe that's why people consider that to be a dirty move there, but at least George Russell gets out okay, and certainly terrible start to the year for Mercedes, of course, with Lewis getting a engine failure there early on in the race after a short part of that race had already gone by. So yeah, at least we get a different winner finally. I guess it's bound to happen eventually where Max Verstappen wouldn't win a race, but who knew it would come out by with him getting a brake failure and the brakes stuck and gets on fire and he has to drop out of the race. So a lot different result than I think we were expecting, when we talked about this last week for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we basically just pick him to win every week, and excuse me, to be honest, that's basically been what it is since 2021. For all those people that said it was so boring when Lewis was winning, at least other people won when Lewis was winning. But besides the point, I mean, one thing, other part I mentioned, Albon, Ricardo, those are two key storylines. Alexander Albon wrecked in practice. Williams, I mean, you're a Formula One team, but you don't have a spare chassis. So you sit Logan Sargent, who kept his car clean and ran through practice and did what they asked of him, because they said that they had a better chance at points with Alexander Albon. And Alexander Albon did not score points. A point. Got beat by Haas. So, I don't know. What was that? You basically kill off any type of confidence that Logan Sargent had. He's playing the team game because he knows he's a second driver and probably going to get fired at the end of the year. But, like, what did you gain by doing that? And then, furthermore, it seems like they are not sure if they're going to be able to repair or make another chassis or whatever the hell it is in time to get ready for the Japanese Grand Prix in a couple of weeks. So they could be in the same exact position, and Logan Sargent could be sitting there holding the bag, which I think is pretty pathetic. It was I think basically panned by most entities, because it's Bush League. When you're talking about a sport that is multi-billions of dollars, and you're telling me you don't have an extra chassis. And don't tell me it's a cost cap thing, because Red Bull broke the damn cost cap and they're still benefiting from what they did. And they own two teams as well. So I mean, the notion that Williams doesn't have a spare car is completely asinine to me. But, I mean, I guess they're trying to send Logan Sargent out, but they're going to do it in the weirdest way possible. He's not even going to be able to race. That's what they're going to say. You're like, oh, well, we didn't get to see him enough. I'm like, for fuck's sake, you don't even allow the guy to race. So that's that with so we'll see what happens with Williams. That's going to affect their standings, especially in the constructors. We'll get into those points momentarily. Somebody else who's struggling to do anything is Daniel Ricciardo, who was called back in by One-Eyed Marco and Karen Horner to take over at AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, not Minardi. And this year they had the drama a couple weeks ago between him and Yuki Tsunoda. The notion is neither of those guys are capable of being the second driver, not because they couldn't do what Checo's doing. I probably could, but they're just not as good, which is interesting considering how good that car is in the hands of fish lips and how much that Sergio Perez struggles with it, which, honest to God, that's really what that's showing, basically putting all the emphasis on the one driver and not making a balanced car for two people, which when they complain about, oh, why doesn't Checo go out there and finish second every single week? This weekend's a perfect example of that. The setup wasn't right for him. He wasn't able to get comfortable, wasn't able to put a good lap together in qualifying in Q3. Then overtaking, of course, is difficult. This car, in the hands of Sergio Perez, not as likely or not as capable going and passing other cars. The McLaren is a decent car. The Ferrari, of course, is a good car. They're the second and third best cars on the grid. So, we see what's going on with that. Ricciardo is closer to being off the F1 grid than he is staying. Rumors of Liam Lawson getting his ride are starting to go out there. They're going to have Iwasa drive Ricciardo's car in FP1 and Japan. There's the vultures are flying around Danny Rick. Good, bad, or indifferent, but if we're really being honest, his McLaren performance probably was a sign that he was done. And then this is just like the nail in the coffin, so to speak. For the back end teams, for the two teams that are in the back this year, Haas was the worst team theoretically in F1 last year, or arguably. Well, this year there's a two-way race between Alpine, which is a factory effort, and a soon-to-be factory effort in Sauber. Kick, save, start, and right click, left click, whatever. Sauber with the ugly green and black, but their cars are just as shitty. So that's a battle between those two teams to see who's going to suck more. Right now, Alpine is beating them just a little bit, but yeah, that's the second half of the grid. You have 5 good teams out there. Well, it's borderline that Mercedes can call themselves a good team, but it's 4.5 good teams and 5.5 bad teams. So that's what F1 is. Fish lips will get back to winning, but next race. But any other thoughts, Josh, before we move on to the Indy cars for some of the things that happened, like with Logan Sargent and Ricciardo's imminent end of his Formula One career?
Well, I think Ricciardo should come over to NASCAR. He's an American, might as well try out his childhood racing series that he liked to watch with Earnhardt and all that. But I mean, that's what I think, because he's probably done. But I guess, yeah, with Sargent, I mean, yeah, that's pretty pathetic that F1 team doesn't have a backup car to use for a race for either of their cars, and they had to give up Logan Sargent and put in Alex Albon, who, I mean, they clearly favor him for whatever reason, and instead of demoting him for the race, they said, hey, we need to take out you and put in the other guy, which is pretty ridiculous, but I mean, it is what it is. But it does, the one point that I wanted to bring up about that is, well, I mean, you guys are denying entry to Andretti, who would be more than competent to have a spare car for these instances, more than likely, and you deny entry to him and have the audacity to do that, at least for now. I mean, maybe this will change, but you're like, sorry, we're not taking you, but we'll keep these guys who don't have a spare car, legacy team and all that. But it's like, come on, that's what are we doing? Is this a country club, or you guys want to welcome in a guy that is a proven winner in other series and all that? So yeah, that's what I thought about that. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is there. But yeah, Ricardo, I mean, I think it's too early, but with Ricardo, but I think he should. I mean, he's probably on the tail end anyways. But I mean, it's just not a very good team to start out with in the first place. So it's hard to like say, oh, you got a 2-race ultimatum to get your shit together and everything. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of crazy there. But yeah, that lot to think about there for those two teams.
Yeah, I mean, Williams is also owned by an American financial firm, so the two American teams are two of the more irrelevant teams. And then you had Michael Andretti, but Michael Andretti doesn't bring enough to the table. So Haas brings what? Which literally is the same thing that it was in NASCAR before he got nailed for tax evasion and Tony Stewart bought the damn team. That's literally what Haas F1 is. And then Williams is not, the Williams family is not there anymore. You have Doritos, whatever, owning the team. So there's no connection there. You say, oh, they can say it's a legacy brand. Their legacy, the last time they were relevant was a decade ago. That was the last time they were actually a legitimate team. And to go and really get into it is more than 20 years since they were a legitimate contender to win championships. So what the hell are we talking about here? But then it's Formula One. Ben Suliam's getting in his shit every single week, and they're nailing him on it, but he gets away with stuff. Karen Horner can sexually harass women and get away with it. Jos Verstappen can be a racist prick, but it's fine. That's what Formula One is, I guess. And, it's disgusting what the sport has become. And they talked about Drive to Survive and all that, but it's not Drive to Survive that's driving what's going on right now. It's just the poor leadership, the lack of leadership, and accountability everywhere, not just from the FIA, Domenicali being a pushover cock, Ben Suliam being a typical Saudi kind of person, whatever, who's like, oh, it's like, if you don't like it, well, I'll shoot you kind of bullshit. Even though he's an ignoramus. The product they put out on the racetrack's not good generally. They have a problem with getting fans go, but then the point is, it's like, it's more of a thing to say. It's a status symbol than anything else. It's not something to be like, oh, you really went to a Formula One race. It's this amazing thing, because Formula One racing sucks. At the end of the day, if you're talking about watching a race, and then you have to give away an organ to go and see a race too. But whatever. In terms of the Drivers' Championship, Fish Lips has a 4-point lead on Eclair, 5 on Checo, 11 on Carlos Sainz. Then there's a big gap to Oscar Piastri, who's still a point ahead of Lando Norris. Woody is 7th, 2 points ahead of Fred Alonso. Lance Stroll and Lewis Hamilton round out the top 10. Yuki Tsunoda tied with Ollie Bierman for 11th. The Haas drivers round out the point scorers as of now. You have both Alpine drivers, both Sauber drivers, both Williams, and the Daniel Ricciardo as the drivers that have not scored a point through 3 events. So we'll see what happens there in Japan a couple weeks' time. In terms of the constructors' standings, it's a 4-point gap between Red Bull and Ferrari. McLaren is on their own island in 3rd. Mercedes and Aston Martin are only separated by a point. Then Not Minority in 6th, Haas in 7th. 2 points separating those two teams. And then you have Williams, Slauber, and Alpine. All with no points, as I mentioned. All right, so then we go to Thermal Club out in California, and they saw what we have seen a lot in recent times, which is Alex Palou going and dominating the race and running off with it, winning by just under 6 seconds, 5.79 seconds, and winning $500,000 in the process. So that was a big deal there for him. A big win at Thermal Club. Ran the fastest lap. Ran away from the race itself. So Alex Palou from pole gets the victory over Scott McLaughlin, Felix Rosenqvist, who started 2nd. Colton Herta came from tailback to 4th. He started 12th. He was the last car to advance out of the one heat, and chose not to run very hard. Finished last in the first stage, and then moved up through the field. Marcus Armstrong finished 5th after starting 3rd. Former Lewis Hamilton's former physio, Angela Cullen, seen there, looking like she's working with Marcus Armstrong now. So interesting turnabout there. Linus Lundqvist, his teammate, finishes 6th. So Ganassi gets 3 out of the top 6. And Rossi 7th, the only McLaren to make it. Joseph Newgarden in 8th. And then the 3 Rahal cars in 9th, 11th, and 12th. Lundgaard, Green Rahal, and Pietro Fittipaldi, who got DQ'd after the first stage. So I'm not really sure what happened with that. And then Agustin Canapino made it in for Juncos Hollander Racing. Going into the heat races itself, Rosenqvist won by just under half a second over Scott McLaughlin. Newgarden, Lundgaard, Canapino, and Colton Herta rounded out the cars that advanced. Herta had to hold off rookie Nolan Siegel, looks like Gilbert Gottfried, and then Root Beer Floathead and Willie Winge Power there. So that was a battle late. Kyle Kirkwood, Stingray Robb, Scott Dixon, who got penalized for avoidable contact. That sent Romain Grosjean. Sorry, I had to, because every single one of these they pronounce as Romain Grosjean. They have to emphasize it. I'm like, why do you have to emphasize it? The guy's a rolling wreck. Just call him Romain Grosjean until the guy fucking wins something. He's terrible. He's a freaking hack deluxe. Just stop emphasizing his freaking name until he does something. When he was winning when he won F2 or whatever it was called, when he won it, okay, I get it. He drives for Juncos Hollander. Nobody gives a fuck. Give it up. And Rinus VK was the unfortunate car that got taken out in that deal. Scott Dixon, Will Power, those are two cars that did not make the main event through their heat. And then in Heat 2, Palou has mentioned 5.3 seconds ahead of his teammate Marcus Armstrong. And then huge gap to Green Rehal, Linus Lundqvist, Pietro Fittipaldi, and Alexander Rossi. It was basically, if the race started with Rahal on, there were 10 seconds separating 3rd through 13th. Pato O'Ward finished 7th. Tom Blomqvist, Callum Ilott, Christian Rasmussen, Kiffin Simpson, Marcus Ericsson, who crashed during qualifying, and then Colin Braun rounding out the field. So you talked about two former champions. You look at Pato O'Ward, who's one of the big stars, most popular drivers in this series. His teammate Callum Ilott, for at least temporarily. Those are Marcus Ericsson is a big name getting paid a lot of money. Those are all big names that missed the show. I'm not sure if this was the best way to identify or make a field. If you're going to go and make it $1 million challenge or make it some sort of all-star made-for-TV event, I think it probably benefits everyone if you put Scott Dixon in the field. I don't think there should have been, if you're going to have this race, we'll get into it. Palou dominated. So, but if you're going to have this kind of one-off kind of deal, you put the 6-time champion in there. He won a race last year. He won a pole. He ended the year strong. He was the strongest driver in the series at the end of the season. And, he made a mistake, and a rare mistake, and got penalized for it. But this is an example of where you need to have a past champions provisional or something, because he's not abusing it like Darrell Waltrip did or Dale Jarrett or whoever to hold on for dear life. The guy is still fast. He's the leader of Ganassi Racing. They're a 5-car team, and all those other guys are way younger than him. Kiffin Simpson doesn't even know what the fuck he's doing. He's out there. And then you have Linus Lundqvist, who's a rookie coming off of winning Indy Next a couple of years ago. Marcus Armstrong, who's a Formula 2 guy who wasn't going to go anywhere, so he came to IndyCar. And, Palou is Palou. But the fact that he's actually honoring a contract, he must say no habla inglés when he sees contracts or something. But one thing, he learned English very well or knew English very well when he saw $500,000 in a yesterday after they won that, Josh, and he won the race. Like I said, he basically won the race on Saturday when he qualified on pole for his heat and ran the fastest lap because and in the process, I think that group going out, the cars that did go out, essentially determined the result of that particular heat. While the McLaren team, Gavin Ward was seen post-qualifying straining and looking very stressed out because he didn't send any of his cars back out there to qualify. And before everybody else went out, they were looking pretty good. And afterwards, they were all buried and left. And the guys who had to hold the proverbial bag, like I mentioned earlier, were Pato O'Ward and Callum Ilott, who both had decent pace during those practice sessions they had before. But in the end, Hello Plo does it again, this time for $500,000 at the Thermal Club, Josh.
Yeah, Alex Plo gets $500,000 at the Thermal Club, and I mean, yeah, this was not really much of a race at all. Not very compelling up front. There's maybe a little bit of action in, second and third for like a lap or two. That was basically it. And, afterwards, some stuff in the mid pack, but, not very much. And I mean, this is a good experiment. I mean, the idea of it, give him credit for trying something out, but, on track, nothing of this was compelling. I mean, I reading the Racer article here, and he said the sleep-inducing first half affair set the stage for a proper fight to see who would claim the dollars on offer for the winner. And, I mean, maybe tires were going to be an issue, but they're never really an issue there. And, I mean, I knew Pelot would probably win this because, he's been the best drivers, in the series for a while now. And, if he qualified up front and won his heat and all that, then probably would, go out and dominate the race, and which is exactly what he did. But yeah, I mean, the problem with this race is that, I mean, to me, the track itself isn't really fit for open wheel cars. I mean, it was a good try and everything, and we'll get into the fan, experience part in a minute, but like, yeah, this race, there wasn't really any on track action, and called an all-star event, but then, you mentioned like Scott Dixon doesn't even qualify, which actually could be a headline there. Like, yeah, it's an all-star event, but he doesn't make the show. So there are different things that they could have done to make this better. First of all, there's got to be a track somewhere. I mean, obviously, I know in the north it's still cold a little bit, so that probably eliminates some tracks from being able to go out and race on, more than likely. But there's got to be some track where we can go have a all-star race event and have it compelling, entertaining racing throughout, that provides enough for open wheels to go out and have a good show. And it's not the case here at Thermal Club, which this is a residential club where you can take your expensive track car and go out and have a drive for a bit and pay to live there, right? This isn't a place really that's meant for full-fledged open wheel racing machines to go out and try something there. So that's part of it. The other part is like the guaranteed entries. I mean, we have NASCAR where if you're a past champion in the series, you're guaranteed into the show. If you're a winner in the series for the current and previous season, you're in the show. If you're a winner of the event previously, then you're in the show. So there are things like that, and it's kind of ridiculous when you get to see Scott Dixon in there. They could have inverted the field. I mean, which would have been entertaining at least to see if Pelot could have gotten back up to the front, which that would definitely be difficult for him, but that's something that NASCAR does, or they've done in the past, is they've inverted the field there to try to make it more challenging. Have different levels of push to pass available instead of the standard, because it really just felt like, I saw some people say it felt like an F1 sprint race, and it just felt like having a regular race on a course that's not meant for IndyCar racing, and you had your two heats and then the two halves and everything. So yeah, there wasn't really much to watch there, and so it was a good try, but it could have been way better if they had it at a different racetrack, wherever that might be. But not very compelling at all. Fan experience wise, of course, if you're able to afford to either fly out there or go out there and venture out, however you might go do that, and pay the $500 to go do that, which that's a plane ticket, at least right there, or a hotel stay for a weekend, more than likely, in some areas. So and then the race ticket itself is $500. Like that's a lot, but of course you got a lot with it. Obviously you had, since there wasn't a lot of people there anyways, pretty much had like a lot of ability to go out there and have food and have the food trucks. I think there's free food, and go up to all the drivers essentially, because there's nobody there and all that, so you can actually interact with them and talk to them and have all that fan interaction. So there was some level of positives from that. The other part is, of course, getting to know some of the clientele that go there, and maybe pitching a B2B deal, as they call it, for potential race sponsorship. That's maybe one of the positives there. But as far as the actual racing part, not really much. So we'll see if they bring back this type of event next year, but hopefully at a different track that maybe provides some action here. I'm not sure if it's worth it to go to an oval, say like Homestead Miami Speedway, which in this weather might be perfect for it, but it's hard to say. Or another track, maybe like a Road Atlanta or something like that, as an all-star challenge here. I would kind of think Watkins Glen, but it may still be too cold up in central north New York to go up there and have a race up there. So that's some of the things that I thought about, or maybe like VIR or Limerock Park. I don't even think Limerock Park doesn't even do GTP racing or anything like that. I think they only do like the GT class for IMSA, so that might not be even viable there. There are different tracks that they could have tried, but yeah, definitely something, if they bring this back, they got to figure out a way to get the 6 weeks that we have between the opening race at St. Petersburg and then Long Beach. We got to figure out a way to fill in the gaps somehow if we're not going to have a race, points paying race like we used to with Texas or other tracks, something like that. So, it was, like I said, good try, but definitely the execution could have been way better.
Yeah, you brought up some good tracks. I think the one track that I was thinking that they already have on the schedule that they could do an all-star event at because they draw well is Baba. They're able to, and the racing is relatively all right there, considering it's a motorcycle track. They figured out a way to make racing good at Barber Motorsports Park, and it's one of those beautiful tracks in the whole entire country. And that would make a lot of sense to have like an all-star event there early in the year, since it's warmer. VIR is definitely an option because they're an independently owned racetrack. I think these days Road Atlanta is owned by Jim France and company. So any track that has the France family connected to it, you can basically kiss that goodbye for IndyCar. Even though Roger Penske's Roger Penske, I don't know how the hell that doesn't play a role. But then, You see how he's running the series. You go and look at SMI tracks. They can't go to Texas, and now because Texas has got the Cup date back in April, so that takes away the IndyCar option there. COTA, NASCAR now has that, which we'll talk about here in a minute. They were able to go there. Atlanta's not viable. Las Vegas is not viable. Charlotte might be. But do they? I mean, to be fair, I don't think that would be such a bad idea. Racing at Charlotte Motor Speedway, with Indy cars. I think it would be unique with these cars compared to what it had been in the past when they were driving those toilets around the track, and Tony Stewart was breaking track records everywhere. But maybe that's an option. I mean, the notion of IndyCar, you look at IMSA, they basically, within weeks of finishing their second race of the season, they've already announced their calendar for 2025. I mean, granted, they have good leadership in John Doonan, and there's a lot of continuity there. But how the hell does a series have their schedule out? Like, they haven't even gotten to the third event of the season yet. They already have their schedule out. Yet IndyCar cannot figure out a way to fill a 6-week gap to start the season, except with some cheesy, corny race at a country club, at a track which is basically meant for, like Josh said, basically track day cars. It's like when Fat Felon making those Camaros or whatever for rich people to drive, which is code for testing stuff on the cars, but NASCAR obviously doesn't bother to worry about that. I mean, there's a lot of tracks, like the Road Atlanta thing, if they weren't owned by France and company, I think would have been a good one. They used to run Indy cars there way back when. I mean, they're in Watkins, then, like you brought up, that's an ISC track too. So they should have an IndyCar race there. They should be racing there probably sometime in the summer. But then you have the 6 hours at the Glen in June, and then you have the Cup race. It used to be in August forever. Now it's in September. So actually there is room, either in July or August if they really were smart. But then IndyCar basically has parked their calendar in the summer. You add this year with the Olympic break too. So now that's one thing with the IndyCar series this year, being connected to NBC. IndyCar themselves effed it up with the gap between St. Petersburg, for whatever reason, starting it at the start of March instead of waiting till the end of March, which it used to be. And then you wouldn't have needed the thermal deal. You could have probably run the thermal deal a couple of weeks ago when they ran St. Pete, run St. Petersburg as the opener, and then you have 2-3 weeks between that and Long Beach. That makes more sense. I don't know what happened, what the logistics were, why it went off the way it did. I don't know whose genius idea it was to go and race at a country club. Probably Mark Miles, because I was seeing memes about it, and he's an idiot stick. So he's just a ball licker. So it's typical IndyCar with the leadership. But I don't know. It is what it is. And then you have the fact you're going to have this gap, and then you're going to have the Olympic break too. So you have another gap right in the heart of the series, right in the season. I mean, in NASCAR, it's not as big of a deal because they're racing the first 20-something weeks of the season. They've been racing. They started at Daytona, or Yeah, started with Daytona, and they're going to be racing till August, whatever, when the Olympics start. IndyCar's got gaps. It's like the same thing with the Truck Series. They got huge gap. Like, it makes no sense. You would think that a major racing series would know how to make a schedule. But there's probably other crap going on that we don't know or they don't want to tell us. We'll see. Whatever. We'll see the Indy cars in a month at Long Beach. Hopefully, I'll remember that they're still a series by then. Yeah, we mentioned the guys that did make it. Felix Rosenquist, so give him a shout out after a great weekend. Qualifying, he's had two great qualifying sessions to start 2024. And Meyershank, I think the smaller team fits him. The fact that they're building the team around him suits him. The combination with him and Tom Blomqvist, I think, is a comfortable pairing. So there's potential there. We'll see what happens once they really get the season going, though, for Meyershank Racing and everybody else in the IndyCar series. All right, let's get into NASCAR. Will Byron goes out there and puts an old-fashioned whooping on the field in the Echo Park Grand Prix. Leads the most laps, 42. Didn't win a stage, but it didn't matter because he was pitting from the lead, and he was still able to get a couple of stage points. He was one of 11 or 7 drivers to lead the race. All those drivers finished within the top 14 positions. Christopher Bell won stage 1, Denny Hamlin won stage 2. The results: William Byron, Christopher Bell, Keebler Gibbs, Alex Bowman, Tyler Reddick. So 3 Toyotas in the top 5 and 2 Hendrick cars. AJ Allmendinger, best of the rest, in 6th in a car and a deal that came together a couple of weeks ago. I mean, to be fair, it's Matt Collig's team. And it's Matt Collig's company on the car, so whatever. Ross Chastain, a former winner at COTA. Christopher Buescher, Kyle Busch, and that Truex kid from Mayetta, New Jersey, rounded out the top 10. The only Ford in the top 10 was Buescher. Then you had 3 Fords. Joey Logano, who started tailback, defending series champion Ryan Blaney, and then Chase Briscoe, who started 32nd after flat spotting his tires in qualifying, came back up to 13th. He also had a penalty for cutting the course. Dennis Hamlin and Darrell Walsh Jr. round out the top 15. Darrell had got taken out in a wreck early in the race with Corey LaJoie and I think Truex, and he was having to get the tow in put back on the car, and they were able to, and that long green flag run benefited him. Justin Haley was up there, finished 17th, but got DQ'd. I'm not sure why he got DQ'd. I didn't read it, but whatever. It's, I guess, might explain why they're so fast or doing illegal shit. It is Rick Ware Racing, so. Will Byron destroys the field. It really wasn't that dramatic. There really wasn't a whole lot going on. It was a Hendrick and Toyota benefit. The only thing that might have added a little bit of intrigue was Chastain leading there, but the pit stop sequence, the last pit stop sequence, took that away. Byron getting his second win of the year. It's not like he needed any additional help. It's similar to last year where he kind of is winning wherever. But the greater question, since we're early in the season, is this sustainable for William Byron? He was able to get to the Final Four last year. But he got to the final race at Phoenix and he wasn't able to finish the job there. Can he sustain, and is he the favorite? We talked about this last year, and I think we had said whatever, but is this a different season, Josh, for William Byron? Is he going to be able to close the deal, or are we too early to really tell what this series is going to be like in 2024?
I mean, it's either or, because he won the Daytona 500, but then he also fell off for a few weeks and had a few races where he had bad finishes, and then comes back here and dominated, which isn't surprising. He was also probably the dominant car last year. On strategy, I think he actually led more laps than Tyler Reddick did last year, but I think Reddick just had a better short run car there. But Byron has got multiple wins now again, 3 years in a row for the first time. So it's interesting to see how this will play out. I mean, they could easily go on a run. They've been really good on some of the tracks that are coming up. They've had success at, but we'll see if they're able to pull it out in the next couple of weeks and really show what they can do. But on the other hand, they haven't been as consistent so far to start the year as you would like for a team that could be in the Final Four. But it's going to be interesting to see. They have to definitely be more consistent. There's a driver, of course, Ty Gibbs has the best average finish actually of the race so far. This year, 8.8 average finish, and William Byron, I think he has an average finish of like 13th. So there's still a lot of work to be done for William Byron this year. But I do think he's probably going to be somebody that at least will be in contention for the championship four, if not the round of 8. So it's going to be interesting to see for sure. But I mean, I did think the race was compelling to a degree. I mean, that wasn't like a banger of a race by any means, but I did find it interesting to watch, especially at the end with the Hendrick cars. They were one of the first cars to pit on the final run, and William Byron's out there on a big lead, but Chris Bell, he pits 5 laps later or so and is able to make up a ton of time. And you look at the race and it's like, it's 15 to go. William Byron's got like a 5-second lead or something. He's probably going to run away with this, but then Chris Bell's like 10 seconds back, but he's able to make it up. And probably if the race were at least 2 or 3 laps more than what it was than scheduled distance, then maybe he could have made the move for the win, because he was definitely the fastest car on the racetrack at the end. So I thought that part was kind of interesting. That's always something that's interesting with these races, especially with road racing, is things get so far stretched out, but there's always one guy that might have found something, or they're on a different strategy. They're on better tires than the guys in front of them, and they're trying really hard to get up through the field and get by to get back up there. So a little bit of extra work that he probably had to do, being on 5 laps more than the other guys on tires, or less than the other guy on tires, and maybe falls back. Say he's in 4th, falls back to 8th, but then he's got better pace than the guys in front of him, so he's got to work a little bit harder to pass by all of them. But you hope with the tire advantage that you pass by them as efficiently as you can. So that was pretty interesting to watch. Ty Gibbs also had kind of the same deal there as well, but just not as quite as much pace as his teammate there, and Chris Bell. So Chris Bell, of course, a little bit of drama there, got a talking to from Kyle Busch, and so He told Kyle told him to expect one coming at some point. So that's going to be interesting to see when that happens, because Kyle's one of the more cleaner. I mean, for as aggressive as he is, he's one of the more cleaner guys in this series, probably if not the cleanest. So he's able to, ride that fine line of aggression, but still keep it clean when it comes to racing other drivers and everything. So it was kind of weird to see, and a lot of people saying Chris Bell looks like he got intimidated by that if you look at his face, but that just looks like Chris Bell just kind of understanding the situation and saying, okay, sorry about that, whatever. So Kyle obviously upset, but he still finished well in this race. But obviously there was guys that are getting sent throughout this race. Corey LaJoie sent Bubba Wallace on the first lap of the race. Kamui Kobayashi got sent by Ricky Stenhouse, which I guess Ricky Stenhouse still thinks it's World War II or something. So, you got that. Josh Berry sent Kamui Kobayashi as well. So, I mean, there's talk online of whether he'll ever come back, and hopefully he comes back. But obviously not really the welcome that he had. Of course, I think he was lapped down as well. Maybe that was part of it. Is like, oh, he's dive bombing a guy while he's a lap down, and maybe they didn't appreciate that or something. I'm not sure, but it's disappointing to see, because he's obviously a talented driver. He's won 24 hours of Daytona, won Le Mans, and all that, has been in Formula One. So unfortunately, not so good results running here at Indianapolis last year and here at COTA this past weekend. So unfortunate there, but I mean, it was still compelling race. Didn't have any real cautions, but it was from a strategy point of view. Still it was an interesting race to watch for sure. But with this package, you wonder if they need more horsepower for this, but also if they had the Bristol tire, how would have this looked like? So that's part of it. But I mean, I thought I didn't think it was that bad of a race. And I mean, if I took Jeff Gluck's poll, I think I would have put yes, which I think I did. So that's how I feel about the race.
Yeah, I mean, it's a take it or leave it deal. I mean, the Kobayashi point getting sent, it's similar to what everyone was talking about last year after COTA, where basically if you weren't getting airmailed into a corner, you weren't seemingly trying hard enough. The whole talk of respect behind the wheel and respect between drivers doesn't exist anymore. A guy who was, as you mentioned, Formula One driver, a podium finisher, I believe, in Formula One. I may be remembering wrong, but definitely a winner of Le Mans, the Rolex, big time player at Toyota in general. Brought up the fact that Japan would be open and eager to have NASCAR come back. That'd be an interesting thing to see these cars at, say, Fuji Speedway, even though they absolutely neutered the track, but in some sort of exhibition event. I think that would be a cool thing to see. I mean, Twin Ring Motegi, I don't know what, that's a Honda track, so I don't know if that would be a thing, but, or Suzuka, but definitely Fuji Speedway would be an interesting prospect, since they run all these road courses. A point about the horsepower, they definitely they have to change. There's fundamental problems in terms of the way this car is for NASCAR. It's essentially a GT3 car, which is why it stops as well as it does with these huge ass brakes. It's why, downforce wise, you have a hard time passing. And then they only have 600 horsepower, when a Ford Mustang and a Chevy Camaro at their like highest whatever level has more horsepower. You know, like what are we doing here? And then the notion that I mean, they don't have a legitimate excuse. It's the same bullshit from NASCAR. Oh, it's a money saving. They're not saving money. You don't save money by reducing horsepower. You're saving your who I don't understand what the end game is by running 600 horsepower. You're not getting any OEMs because you're running 600 or 550 or 450. There's no OEM sitting there knocking on the door to get into this series. The same way as there's no OEMs that are going to get into IndyCar. But you know what has a bunch of OEMs and is also owned by Jim France? IMSA. And that's because you can take your GT3 car, which basically any sports car these days is becoming a GT3 compliant, and you can run whatever engine you want, and they have BOP that makes it somewhat reasonable to compete. And that's whether you have a Corvette, a Mustang, or an Aston Martin or a Ferrari, and everything in between. I mean, whatever. Byron wins a race, whatever. It's Hendrick. He's been that kind of talent, and he's shown it, like you said, Josh, the last few years. Getting Rudy Fugle has been a game changer for his career in Cup. And since then, and then this new car suits his driving style compared to the previous car. And so we'll see. Can he get the job done? He got the Daytona 500 by default, essentially. And then, but this one, there was no doubt. He had this race basically in the bag on Saturday after qualifying. Oh, ironic. That's basically what the other two races were, but in different ways. But yeah, that was that going on for the Cup Series. The driver points that were done yesterday, and that was counting I think Justin Haley having his finish, but I don't think that they took those out yet. So Martin Truex Jr. leads the points by 5 over Ty Gibbs, 9 over Ryan Blaney, Hamlin 4th, Kyle Larson 5th. So you have, and then William Byron in 6th. So there are 15 points separating the top 5 in points. William Byron is minus 37, tied with Christopher Bell for 6th. Drivers 4 through 7 in points all have won so far in 2024. You know, that's 5 of the 6 wins. Daniel Suarez is 14th in points. I mentioned Bell. So Chastain, Chase Elliott, Tyler Reddick round out the top 10. Bowman, Buescher, Kyle Busch, Suarez, John Hunter Nemechek, and Brad Keselowski round out the 16. Chase Briscoe's 3 points out, and Darrell Walsh Jr. is 5 points out of the cutoff at the moment. Gumby, Cindric, and Michael McDowell are tied for 19th, 15 points behind Keselowski. And then you go from there. Joey Logano now up to 22nd in points, moved up 4 spots with his top 15 finish. So something to look at there. Logano's given up a lot of points early in the season. Other than that, I'm trying to go through here. Looking for, yeah, so, I mean, outside of Chase Briscoe in 17th, every driver at Stewart-Haas is 28th or worse. Josh Berry, 28th, Priest, 30th, and Gagson, 34th. Now, of course, Priest and Gagson had that point penalty. And Gragson's still ahead of Zane Smith, who's had a nightmare start to the season, or tied with Zane Smith, actually. You have, Austin Dillon is 29th in points, sandwiched by the two of the SHR cars, Haley, Harrison Burton, Kaz Gralla as well. So Harrison Burton, I guess it's a good thing that Dan Doyle is a benefactor of his, because if not, I don't think Harrison Burton would have a job. But he seems to be a benefactor in a lot of places with that sponsorship. All right, Xfinity Series, the Focused Health 250. There's two drivers that led a good amount of the race. 8 drivers total, but 2 drivers. It was Shane Van Gisbergen, who started second, led 20 laps, and then AJ Allmendinger's teammate, who led 20 laps as well. But in the end, Kyle Larson led 1 lap, the last lap, and it wasn't even the full last lap. It was probably a third of a lap to get the victory. Bobby Hill ran SVG over in turn 1. Ended up getting second. John Hunter Nemechek was third. Cole Custer fourth. Parker Klitterman fifth. Jesse Love in sixth. Come to find out that Austin Green is the son of former Busch Series champion David Green, so that makes it even cooler. And he was driving for Doug Peterson in three-dimensional whatever.com, so they ended up withdrawing that car to jump into the Jordan Anderson 32, which had points, makes the show, gets a top 10 on debut. So credit to Austin Green there. Chandler Smith 8th, Sam Mayer 9th, and AJ Allmendinger in 10th. Probably left wanting for sure. So the points in terms of the stage points are scattered all over. Drivers all over that. Was really competitive. Sage Karam started 6th and had a fast race car, ended up 17th. Got into it with Parker Kligerman post-race, who ended up winning stage 1. Riley Herbst won stage 2 and then ended up wrecked. Ed Jones, a former IndyCar driver and a driver in the WEC, making a rare NASCAR start. Creed was nowhere the whole entire day. Josh Williams, coming off the birth of his daughter, coming back to the racetrack, had issues, continuing his nightmare start to the season. Trying to see here. Balicki got stage points, but then fell out. RC Enerson in this field, SVG. So, I mean, essentially, it was a colleague benefit, but when it counted, Kyle Larson was able to get the job done because Austin Hill, being Austin Hill, drives through SVG and doesn't cop to it per usual, and then bitched and moaned per usual when he got it back. and in the process screwed not only himself but SVG out of the opportunity to win and handed the thing to Larson on a silver platter.
I mean, that was part of what made the race interesting there. I mean, Kyle Larson won the pole but didn't lead a lap until the final lap, which, that's a very rare thing to do. And so he won from the pole without actually even really leading any of the race until the very end. But yeah, SVG, not only did SVG lose the race because of Austin Hill, really, but then also the track limits came into play there, and went from a second place finish all the way down to 27th for SVG, and he led the most laps along with AJ Allmendinger there. So I mean, if it weren't for the last cautions there, towards the very end, this was only supposed to be a 48 lap race, and then at the very end we had an issue with fluid on the track for one car for whatever reason at the very end, and that caused the caution, and then you have another wreck that caused the green-white checkered. So just a bad deal there for SVG, which would have been his first Xfinity win. Definitely had it in the bag there, but ends up, Austin Hill used him up going into turn one. Still kind of kept him in there. He didn't completely take him out, but it's the same deal what we talked about in Cup, where you just use the guy in front of you as brakes to be able to overtake going into the corner on a road course, and that's exactly what Austin Hill did. And then SVG was able to get back to him, but then maybe hit him a little too hard because he damaged his car there at the end and allowed Kyle Larson to get by, which was all Larson coming there with the tires that he had, and with SVG possibly trying to race Austin Hill for the win. And it was like, well, if those two guys tangle and get into it, then Larson's going to go over both of them and pass and go for the win. So, and that's exactly what happened. But Austin Hill, not only that, but then Austin Hill, I think SVG cleared him on the final corner, and Austin Hill looked like he was trying to get him back, like he was going to hook him in the right rear. So, it looked like that, and reminded me of that one finish that I've seen on YouTube many times from Laguna Seca back in American Le Mans Series, like 2008 or something. And TK would know if you were on. He because I think he was calling that, but I don't remember exactly. It was Corvette and some other guy.
Corvette and the Flying Lizard Porsche.
Yep. Yeah, so that was what that was kind of reminding me of, but that didn't happen. It would be very controversial, but SVG, didn't want to use the bumper until he really had to, and then maybe use it a little too hard, and then I think he talked to Denny Hamlin after the race or on Sunday and said, well, he thought that in supercars they kind of take care of that if somebody's too aggressive, and they kind of regulate that and penalize the guy afterwards, but in NASCAR, obviously, they don't really do that, so a little bit of a learning lesson there. But Austin Hill, can't really say anything other than you just said he's the kid from King of the Hill, and he looks like, I don't know what he looks like, but definitely somebody who's very petty and everything. And his spotter, I think he complained about after the race, and spotter is basically like, you raced him the same way he raced you, so why are you complaining and everything? So, of course, it's another, and SVG is already a popular guy in the series because everybody wants him to, be able to do this, and Austin Hill just kind of took it away from him there. So we'll see how that happens later, in the year when they go to road course and everything. So, of course, the other fact is, this would have been his first win, but also would have qualified him for the playoffs more than likely. And of course, there's going to be more road courses, throughout the year, but there's certainly, that's an opportunity where you can get a win early and, continue to learn for the rest of the year, and more than likely you make the playoffs and go out and, have playoff points and all that stuff, and potentially be a, outside threat for, playoff run or something like that. So that's something to consider, but it is what it is. But Kyle Larson, I guess I picked him and I was right, but there, but I didn't expect that to happen, and definitely thought SVG would have that one in the bag for sure. But we'll try again, and at another track, I guess.
Yeah, I figure. I mean, I picked SVG, and he had the race won, and then NASCAR decided to do what they do best, and then that inbred dipshit ran over him in turn one, and he parked his car in that infield section and destroyed SVG's car. And then in turn, when he got the payback, he then tried, as Josh mentioned, tried to hook him on the front straightaway multiple times, like a little bitch. I mean, I know that Austin Dillon sucks, and he only has a job because his grandfather owns a team. But this guy is more figuring out a way to be more unlikable than Austin Dillon. And I mean, Austin Dillon's not unlikable because he's just unlikable because it's nepotism and he's irrelevant. This Austin Hill's an inbred and a trust fund kid who's had good rides. He's been able to have good rides in the trucks. He's had good ride in the Xfinity series. And all he does is bitch and moan about how other people race him, even though he drives like a dick. And it's like at some point, somebody has to put him in a wall and just really teach him something, or just punch him out or something. I'm sick and tired of what the sport has become. People like him, like people like Fish Lips, they need to learn a lesson. Somebody has to teach them a lesson. Karma ain't gonna get there, so somebody has to send them and call it a day. And if they're not gonna learn after that, then I mean they're probably not gonna learn anyways because he's well to do, and he's gonna continue to hog a space in a big seat for many years to come. But you'd think he'd probably like look at Kyle Busch and what Kyle Busch went through at times in his career, and for as great of a driver as he is, even he's done really stupid effed up stuff. And it's like and he's an elite level talent. Austin Hill's not that talented. He's just rich and inbred and able to have a seat at a team where they're all about that kind of bullshit at wristwatch racing, and then going, and I mean they've been an irrelevant team and for the better part of a decade, getting so whatever. I can't stand Austin Hill. He's such a douche. It's unbelievable. Like, he has no redeeming qualities whatsoever. I mean, unless fucking your cousin is a redeeming quality, or whatever he does. I mean, like, why? Like, what is the point of him? And then he didn't want to take a cup ride. He wanted to stay in Xfinity. What does that say about you? If you're supposed to be such a great race car driver, why aren't you racing in Cup? Why? Because you can't compete in Cup? Like Daniel Hemrick's out there humiliating himself every week. Ty Dillon, for some reason's getting a Cup ride for 5 races, even though he's legitimately one of the worst race car drivers that exists in America. Why can't you go out there and actually go and take one on the chin, since you take loads anyways? Like unbelievable. Seriously, he's another one that has to hit a wall. Speaking of somebody who has to hit a wall, Corey Heim, he had a great year last year and ended it in a bad way. In this case, he went out there and basically destroyed the field, won the second stage, won the race over his teammate Taylor Gray. It was the XPEL 225. Ty Majeski gets second place in both stages. Leads a couple laps. Connor Zilich in the Austin Hatcher Foundation Chevy started on pole, finished fourth. Ross Chastain started fifth, finished fifth. Jack Hawksworth in, I believe, his NASCAR debut started sixth and finished sixth. So 3 Tricon trucks in the top 6 there. Ben Rhodes from Tailback finished 7th. Christian Eck is 8th. Dean Thompson 9th. So that's 4 trucks from Tricon or 5 trucks in the top 10. There you go. So Tricon Garage having one of the best days they've ever had as an organization. 5 of the top 10 trucks were Tricon vehicles. Nick Sanchez won stage 1 and got that playoff point, and he was there close with Stu Ball, who wasn't too happy with Nick Sanchez being a boomer as well. Typical. But yeah, I mean, the only real story that was of this race, other than the fact that Corey Heim opened a can on everybody, was the fact that Marco Andretti's whole rear end housing fell out of the truck, which is pretty bad. I mean, he didn't hit anything either, really, right? So it's like, how the hell does that happen? Unless the team that he's driving for is really shitty. So that's something that we'll have to look at. I said Connor Zilich is one of the best prospects in the sport and motorsports, and then Marco Andretti's rear end took a shit. But yeah, Corey Heim gets the victory there, Josh.
Yeah, Corey Heim got the victory there, dominated, but yeah, I think that was the story, is Marco Andretti's rear end falling out. I mean, I've never seen anything like that ever, where a car spun out just like that and the entire rear end housing just fell out of the car like that and just rolling around there on the track. Of course, we've seen in the past where, a car crashed and flipped or whatever, and the rear end got taken out, like Ryan Newman 2003 Daytona 500, Danny Bagwell 1999 ARCA race, I think, or something like that, Daytona. So where in an incident and the rear end fell out, we've seen that, but you've never seen anything where a car is effectively intact and just fell out. So obviously some poor welding job there, or something got loose and ended up when he spun out just completely fell out. So what a welcoming to NASCAR for Marco Andretti and what he's able to do. So we'll see how he improves, but I mean, that's quite an experience. And I think really the other story of this race is just how talented Connor Zilich is, and winning the pole, overshot turn 1 there, had to come in, go in the pits, made it back to 4th place in the race, and then ended up leaving to go fly to Five Flag Speedway to compete in an ARCA event there. So he's very talented, of course, and if it weren't for that, he could have won possibly, but very fast. This 7 obviously this year has been a fast car, but on the road courses, he's a very, very good driver. He's only 17 years old, so yeah, what a debut for him here after opening the year Daytona 24 hours, winning there, and then Sebring 24 hours or 12 hours, winning there as well in the LMP2 class, and now coming here making his debut in NASCAR in the Truck Series. I think he'll have a opportunity in Xfinity later this year with Junior Motorsports. So yeah, this is pretty exciting to see him. He's 17 years old. I mean, yeah, making us feel old for sure. But he's getting there and competing early on, and showing that he already probably belongs, of course. So get this man a ride at Le Mans, see if he can go for the Triple Crown in 1 year in sports car racing. So that's a definitely a good debut for him. Jack Hawksworth also, his debut, like you said, in Truck Series, finishing sixth, starting sixth, and led a lap. So pretty good debut here for him. And his debut in NASCAR, after being the factory driver for Lexus and Vassar Sullivan there in GTD Pro. So that's a pretty good debut as well there. So at least there's some interesting things that happened in this race. But otherwise, Corey Heim just opened a can on the entire field. But maybe Connor Zilic, if he wouldn't have spun out in the first lap, maybe, or overshot the corner, maybe this would have been a different story. But that's how it all went down.
Yeah, it happens. It's a learning experience for him, but he's somebody that learns very quick. So he's been winning in an LMP car. He's been winning in a TA2 car last year, won more races than anybody in TA2 and Trans Am. Now he's given NASCAR a shot, and Dale Jr. Has seen the talent and has given him an opportunity. Reminds me a lot of like Colin Braun to a lesser extent. Team 16 many years ago when they ran at a Daytona and Racers Group Porsche. And Ross Bentley, I think, was the one veteran, and there was a bunch of 16-year-old kids showing the kind of talent that was around back then. And this guy, it's like next level, jumping in all these different race cars and just being able to excel. It's got similar vibes to Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart kind of vibes going on. So we'll see how it goes for Connor Zilic. Go back and give you the points in an Xfinity heading to Richmond. Austin Hill has a 9-point lead on Chandler Smith. Cole Custer is third, 30 points behind the leader. Jesse Love fourth, Riley Herbst fifth. AJ Allmendinger, Kligerman, Allgaier, Bruckshot Jones, Sheldon Creed round out the top 10 in points. Sammy Smith and Anthony Alfredo round out the 12. There's only 2 drivers so far this season that are regulars that have won. SVG is just outside. He's 15 points out of the cutoff. Ryan Sieg is tied with Alfredo for the cutoff spot. Parker Retzloff is in 15th, so he's really that last driver right now points-wise. But Sam Mayer is in 19th, so you obviously made the Final Four, so you can't discount him. Jed Burton won at Talladega, so it's something to look at. He's buried in points right now. Josh Williams buried in points right now. So he's 31st in points. So that's really bad for him. And so that's who's there. And then in the Truck Series, Truck Series, Heim takes the points, or points leader by 10 over Ty Majeski and 11 over Tyler Ankrum. Taylor Gray, Rajah Caruth, Christian Eckes, Nick Sanchez, Crafton Enfinger, and Tanner Gray round out the top 10. Defending series champion Ben Rhodes a point out of the cutoff, and then there's a bigger gap Holmes is, what is it? 7 is 18 points behind Tanner Gray. And then 19 points behind Tanner Gray is Friesen, 20, Jake Garcia, and then 22, Daniel Dye, Bailey Curry, a couple more points behind that. So, see what happens at Martinsville. Next time out for the trucks. Last year they raced in the rain or on a wet racetrack, and Corey Heim won the truck race at Martinsville. So we'll see what happens with that this time. Okay, let's get to the roundup here. We had F2 and F3 race in Australia. We'll start with F3. The results there. Let me go. Yeah, it is Alexander Wirtz's son. Oh man. In Melbourne, the results in the sprint race: Martinus Stenshore was the winner for High Tech in the sprint race. The Stenshore over Arvin Lindblad, Lawrence Van Hoopen, Boya, and Goth round out the top 5. Gabriele Mini, Dunn, Sebastian Montoya, Luca Fornaroli, and Christian Mansell round out the top 10. Trying to go through here and find where I'm forgetting. Yeah, Esterson was 26th. That's the American driver. Where is he at? Yeah, Esterson. Yep. Max Esterson is the one American representative on the grid, so there you go. The results of the feature race: Dino Boganovic over Fornaroli and Mini. Prema gets 2 cars on the podium. Luke Browning, Wirtz, Sebastian Montoya, Boya, Bedrin, Goth, and Christian Mansell round out the top 10. Yes, it looks like he fell out of the feature race there. The points heading, taking a couple months off before they race again at Imola. Browning tied with Fornaroli with 37 points. Mini 5 points behind. Boganovic gets his championship started really with the feature race win and fastest lap. Only had 2 points through the first 3 races of the season. He's 9 points behind. Then Lindblad 14 back in 5th. Tramnitz, Mansell, Van Hoopen, Boya, and I can't even say that guy's name. I'm not even going to bother. Sebastian Montoya is in 12th. Esterson is 18th with 5 points. There's still a good number of drivers that haven't scored a point so far through 4 races, but they'll have a while to wait till their next race. F2, the results of Melbourne, the race at Melbourne. In the sprint, Roman Stanek for Trident gets the win over Dennis Auger. Kush Miney, the Indian driver, Franco Colapinto, Ryomo Miata, Isaac Hadjar, who got penalized. He was the winner and celebrated on the podium, but then was penalized. Victor Martins, Zach O'Sullivan, Jack Crawford, one of the Americans, Zane Maloney, the points leader, rounded out the top 10. We got Juan Manuel Correa 11th, Enzo Fittipaldi 12th, and Ollie Bierman 14th. And then the feature race, Isaac Hadjar over Paul Aaron, Zane Maloney, rounding out the podium. And was it Kimi Antonelli or whatever the hell his name is? Or Andrea, sorry. Anton. That's great. I'm making up people's names. Go back to the feature race. Yeah, so then Miata, Vashor, Villagomez, Martins, Bierman, and Jack Crawford getting another point. Kushmini was on an alternative strategy, didn't work out. Pepe Marti as well. Their standings heading to Imola. Zane Maloney has a 15-point lead on Paul Aaron and 21 on Dennis Hauger in third. Isaac Hadjar, Kushmini, Enzo Fittipaldi all separated. There's come by 2 points. So that's interesting to look at there. Jack Crawford tied with Pepe Marti for 7th. Andrea Kimi Antonelli is in 9th. And Ryomo Miata rounds out the top 10. All right, let's move on to the supercars at Melbourne. This past weekend, 1-for-1 Brown battle. Okay, so the results: Repco Supercars Championship, the Melbourne Super Sprint. Of the 4 results, Brock Feeney won 2 out of the 4 races. Will Brown won race. The second race, Brock Feeney races 1 and 3, and then Nick Percat won the last event. So right now, Brock Feeney 3 wins, Will Brown 2, and Percat 1 to start the season. At driver's standings, Will Brown leads by 17 points over Brock Feeney. Chaz Mostert 3rd, Nick Percat 4th. David Reynolds is only a few points out of his former ride with Richie Stanaway. Matthew Payne, so the Penrite teammate, 6 and 7. Thomas Randall, Todd Hazelwood, and then Will Davison, who celebrated 500 starts in the V8 Supercars this past weekend. And they'll be off for just over 3 weeks for till their next race. The MotoGP, Moto2, I mentioned the issues for Marc Marquez crashing into a champion. He goes and does something that he's capable or plenty liable to do, since he's done it many times before. In the results of the Portuguese Grand Prix at the Algarve, Jorge Martin gets the victory over Enea Bastianini, and Pedro Acosta, the rookie, gets a podium finish in 3rd, leading 3 KTMs, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Binder and Miller, the factory KTM guys, behind. Then the VR46 Marco Bisecchi, Fabio Quartararo, Alicia Spargaro, Miguel Oliveira, and Fabio Di Gianantonio for VR46. Gusto Fernandez, Joan Mir, Alex Rins, Taka Nakagami, and Johan Zarco rounding out the points finishers. Marquez remounted his bike but wasn't able to score points. Luca Marini, Morbidelli, the finishers. Vinales, Bagnaia, Alex Marquez, and Raul Fernandez, the riders that fell out of the race. And the points after a couple rounds to start the season. Jorge Martin is the points leader by 18 over Brad Binder and 21 over Enea Bassanini and 23 over Pecco Bagnaia. Pedro Acosta rounds out the top 5. In Moto 2, the race there, Aaron Canet gets the victory by just over 2 seconds on Joe Roberts. And Gonzalez in third. Aldeguer, Agura, Sergio Garcia, Celestino Vietti, Albert Arenas. Ramirez is Roberts' teammate, finished 9th. Chantra, 10th. Alcobar, Bellino, Baltus, Agus, Aegius, and Binder, the point scorers. And then the standings after a couple of rounds in right now, Aaron Canet leads the points by 2 over Joe Roberts, Gonzalez, Garcia, Lopez. So I think it's basically what the results were there. The Sepang, Porter, so they raced Qatar, yeah. So they've only raced 2 rounds so far, and they'll have 3 weeks before they race at COTA for the Grand Prix of the Americas. And so they'll race there, then they'll race at Jerez a couple weeks after that. World Superbikes are at Barcelona. World SBK 2020 Superbike World Championship. The round at Catalunya, second race before they essentially take a month off before they go to Assen. The results: Toprak Raskat Lioku won race 1 and the Superpole race, and Alvaro Bautista won race 2. Nicola Balega finished second in race 1 and race 2. Bautista was third in race 1 in the sprint, and then Toprak Raskat Lioku finished third in race 2. Andre Iannone second in the Superpole race. Boliga has a 12-point lead on Bautista and Lowe's, and a 16-point lead on Raskat Lioku. That's the battle for the championship at the moment, early on in the season. Andre Iannone is 36 points back, Petrucci 40 back. So Garrett Gerloff is in 10th with 25 points, 9 points behind Dominique Argeter, and 6 points out of Remy Gardner. So we'll see how that all shapes up as the season goes on. The NHRA had the Winter Nationals this past weekend. Langdon, Todd, and Enders remain atop the points. The results for that's for E. So Justin Ashley and Tony Schumacher in the Top Fuel final. ladders, yeah. And then in Pro Mod, there's no Pro Mod. There's no Pro Stock Motorcycle. In Pro Stock, they didn't end up racing. Dallas Glenn will go against Eric Anders in the final. In Funny Car, Matt Hagan will go against John Force. In Top Fuel, I mentioned Justin Ashley and Tony Schumacher. Tony Stewart started from the 13 spot and smoked the tires and lost in the first round to Steve Torrance. So, unfortunate start to the season for Tony. 2 first round losses there. Their next race will be at the Arizona Nationals prior to the 4 wide events at Las Vegas and Charlotte. Rally Kenya. Let's see here. WRC. Paraguay. Oh, wow. Toyota selects Ogier for WRCs. Visit to Croatia. Snorkels to make top tier return at the Safari Rally. Oh, yeah, that's right. Snorkels are famous in Pires to help navigate through same terrain, water, and dust, bringing reappearance. Which coincides the Safari Rally moving back to its more traditionally, June during, yeah, they used to run snorkels on the car back in the day. They're showing Armin Schwartz for COTA with that. So the standings, Thierry Neuville up by 3 on Alfred Evans. Neuville won at Monte Carlo. Evans consistent 3rd and 2nd so far. Adrian Formeau 3rd. Ogier 4th. Only raced 1 of the 2 races. Odd Tanak 5th. Eskapeka Lappi 6th after winning in Sweden. Katsuda, Rovanpera, Solberg, and Pajari round out the top 10. Formula E, where are we at? Performance reasons behind 40 place grid drop. The point standings heading into Tokyo, Nick Cassidy leads the points after a win and 2 third place finishes. Pascal Wehrlein 6 points behind in 2nd, 1 win and 2 top 5s. Jake Dennis, the defending champion, world champion, 1 win, and then 3 other top 10s. Jean-Eric Verne, former series champion, is in 4th, a point behind Dennis. Mitch Evans, 2 points behind Dennis in 5th. Sam Bird, Oliver Rowland, Maxi Gunther, Sebastian Buemi, and Robin Freins round out the top 10 in Formula E. We'll talk about Formula E and WRC next week. Also preview NHRA at the Arizona Nationals. All right, so let's move to the previews here for NASCAR. You have Richmond, the Toyota Care 250 on Saturday afternoon. There will be 39 cars for 38 spots. I'm trying to look at some of the people that are in this. So yeah, Dawson Cram back in the 4 for JD Motorsports. The 6 doesn't have anybody listed on the entry list. Yeah, Taylor Gray is going to be in the 19 for Gibbs, Almirola in the 20, Heim in the 26. Kelsey, 32 has nobody listed as of now. Matt DiBurrito listed in the 38 for RSS. Let's see. 66 for MBM. Doesn't have anyone. Bubba Pollard making his Xfinity debut for JRM. And Patrick Emmerling back in the 07. Nobody listed in the 14 for SS Greenlight. Trying to see here. Yeah, 6 or they don't have any of the people filled in there. So picks, what did they do? Josh, you started us off last week, so I'll start us off this week with the Xfinity at Richmond. My picks haven't been as good. Definitely yours are better. I've always said if you're gonna go with somebody's picks, go with Josh's. For me, winner this coming weekend at Richmond, I'm gonna go with Eric Almirola and the 20 car. I think it's a safe pick. He's got plenty of recent experience in the Cup car, but it is a different type of car these days. Richmond is one of his better tracks, so I think Eric Almirola is a safe play. In terms of a wild card selection, I'd have to look at the points again just to see. Go back into the Xfinity Series point standings. You look at how many drivers, 21, 22, 25. So top 13. I can go with him, so I'm going to go with Parker Retzlaff as my wild card choice. He's been fast at a lot of these tracks. The Jordan Anderson team has made a good step forward. I think it's an opportunity for him to get another top 15 finish. What say you, Josh, on the Xfinity Racing at Richmond?
That's a pretty bold pick there, going with Eric Almirola, but I mean, it is a strong car, and the 20, I mean, has always been strong. So I guess this is the first race that doesn't have not Chris Bell, but John Hunter Nemechek in the 20 this Xfinity. But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting one there, but I'm going to go with Chandler Smith. I'll go with the other Joe Gibbs Racing car. I'll go with Chandler Smith winning this weekend here in Xfinity. And a wild card here on the thing. I'll go with Bubba Pollard. Bubba Pollard is a wild card because this is his debut, and he's been known to be a good short track racer over the years. So let's see what he can do in the 88 car.
That'll be cool to see what he can do. Late model star, so it's a soft spot in old Junebug's heart. Could go and give one of the best late model drivers of his time an opportunity at a short track, which Richmond is basically a hybrid, long before we got other tracks like it. Cup Series, Toyota owners 436 for 36. Nobody's going home. Chastain will have the usual Busch Light. Gumby Cindric with Discount Tire. Brestree for Bald Spot Dylan. Sunny D back on the 4 for Josh Berry. Build Submarines for Brad Keselowski. Gainbridge on the 7 for LaJoy. Rebel Bourbon for Kyle Busch. UniFirst for Clyde. Superior Essex for Noah Gagson. Hamlin and Gabe Hart, and the 11 team Mavis Tires and Brakes. Brian Blaney with Menard and Duracell. High Point will be back on the 14 for Chase Briscoe. Chevy Accessories for Ty Dillon. Next Lidall for Chris Buescher. Auto Owners for Truex. Mobile One for Chris Bell. Dex Imaging, Harrison Burton. Bubba with McDonald's this week. Liberty for Byron. Hemrick with LA Golf. Long John Silvers for Michael McDowell. Todd Gilliland with Farsiga. United Rentals for Priest. Safeway for John Hunter. Dollar Tree for Eric Jones. Sirius XM for Tyler Reddick. Kroger and NOS Energy Drink for Richard. Keebler Gibbs Monster. Focus Health for Zane Smith. Delaware Life for Carson Hocevar. And Quaker State for Nacho Libre. So you got second picks on the Xfinity, but you get first picks here on the Cup Series, Josh, for Richmond. Who do you see as a winner and a wild card for this weekend?
Tree for Richmond here. I'm gonna go with I'll go with Kyle Larson. Last year won this race. Should have had a good chance at Bristol, but ended up with her. But I don't know how the tire is going to be looking like here. I mean, this will be an opportunity to use the Bristol tire, but we don't know yet. But this will be an interesting one. And wild card. I'm going to go with Corey LaJoy as a wild card. He's been up and down throughout the year and everything, but this might be a race where he comes out and has a decent finish.
Yeah, the 7 cars had pace at a lot of these racetracks to start the season. I think it's similar to Rick Ware with the 51 with Justin Haley as well. So credit to those organizations bringing better cars to the track on a weekly basis. I'm gonna go with Keebler Gibbs to win. I picked him in my one pool to win, but ended up finishing third last week, so I'm going to end up putting Keebler Gibbs as my winner for the Cup Series. Getting his first career win on Easter, it would make a lot of sense since his grandfather's a Jesus freak and they play up the whole thing and the whole he gets us thing with all those evangelicals. In terms of a wild card selection, I will go with I'll go. See, this is a hard one. I'll just go Josh Berry. Why not? There's really nothing that's telling me that this is going to work. They've had a rough start to the year, but he did qualify well at Bristol. It's a track that Stuart Haas has been able to do decent at in recent years, but this new body style and new package hasn't seemingly worked so well for them. But we'll see. Why not? It is a wild card, so Barry is my wild card. All right, so we'll roll it over to you, Josh, for the sim segment. Let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing.
And iRacing this past weekend and everything when I was able to have time, ran mostly the Toyota GR86 Series at Brands Hatch circuit in the rain, trying to get more rain experience here, and really like the course. I mean, never really raced in iRacing, but I've raced it on a racing game on my phone, Real Racing 3, but that was only the Indy circuit. Now I had the full course, so there's a little bit of a different circuit there, but I was able to run that a few times and ended up getting on the podium on Sunday night in my last race that I attempted. So trying to get used to this rain racing deal, trying to figure out how to get around the track and everything and push the car to the limit while staying out of the puddles and all that stuff, and being able to drive through and get through all the carnage. So that's part of it. But I'm definitely having a lot of fun doing that, and I feel like now in iRacing I'm just like filtering for rain, basically just going on there and looking at the weather, and it's like, oh, if it's not raining, I don't want to go. So let's see how that turns out. But it's kind of fun being able to do that in the rain update and everything. And I think as far as racing iRacing news goes, I guess they had the iRacing 12 Hours of Sebring this past weekend, which obviously they made rain a focus on that, and there was definitely I know there was definitely some splits where nobody really finished, and it being a very sparse field at the end due to the weather, but that's also due to the skill of the field competing. I think in the official one, Williams Esports won like their official split, so that's pretty interesting there. I saw a couple of highlights of it throughout the weekend, so it seemed like a pretty good race and everything. Still need to try to get a attempt in a iRacing endurance race, so hopefully I'll have to find some time to be able to do that and everything. So that should be a lot of fun there. But I think this week on iRacing, the series, let's see, you have the Formula Fords at Okayama Circuit, and weather forecast, chance of rain 66%, scattered showers there, so that might be worth looking at. Competing in that, the Rookie Series, Formula Fords at Winton Motor Speedway there, so that's one of the new tracks that they've put on the iRacing service. So you have that. IndyCar, I guess they have it at Long Beach. I don't think it's available yet, but it's there. Then on the sports car, this is the Formula Car, so they did split the licenses, sports and Formula Car. There, Global Fanatec Challenge, Kia Optima, Cadillac CTS at Indianapolis Road Course there. And then let's see, the Ferrari GT3s at VIR on there, Global MX5s at Mazda MX5s at Okayama Circuit, the GR Butt Kicker Series at Winton Motor Speedway also. So Those are the available series. I think that I'm able to do on iRacing without buying anything on there. So definitely a lot of opportunities to go out and race. NASCAR side, Richmond. Let's see. NASCAR at Richmond this week. Also, the 87s are at Auto Club this week. Got the iRacing Super Speedway as part of the Draft Master Series now, so they've expanded it from just Talladega and Daytona. They put on the iRacing Super Speedway there, which is basically the remake of the Coca-Cola Super Speedway from NASCAR 2002, 2003 on there. So, and Gen 4 at Homestead Miami Speedway for 80 lap event there. So, definitely a lot of opportunities. Obviously, rain, with the rain updates, a lot of fun. So, trying to get good at that, and trying to find the dry line, not hydroplane under braking or anything like that. But it's definitely a lot of fun to participate in those series. So yeah, of course, always a pleasure to be able to stream whenever I'm able to do that, which obviously at twitch.tv/usailor2, go in there and see all the stuff. Of course, also Twitter, JP Huffine. Of course, talked about the Florida Gators and their attempt at the March Madness tournament. She got screwed over by the refs. They're playing Colorado and the refs, so bad reffing there, and hopefully those refs never come back there. But I don't know if they would have made it past round 32. So that's what I was hoping for this weekend, but we'll see next year maybe. But that's what I was talking about there. And of course, all the takes, of course, talked about the F1 debacle with Williams on there. So go on there and follow for all my opinions and reposts and all that stuff on Twitter at JP Huffine. So go on there, and then of course our YouTube page. I have all the shows uploaded there, Gripster Podcast, and go and subscribe and watch our videos and everything like that. So yeah, it's glad to be back for another week. Of course, it was interesting this weekend watching all the racing, and got a nice surprise with Max Verstappen actually not winning a race for once, and everything's there. So turn over you for the rest of the close.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And thank you as always for contributions on the show, and of course away on the video side and with all the posting on our YouTube page and elsewhere. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. Find us at GripsterPod on Twitter. You can find the Gripster Podcast basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. We are on Podbean, philipgmatthew28.podbean.com. And we're also on my WordPress, my blog site, philipgmatthew.com. And so, we'll be back next week, episode 214. A couple of combinations of numbers there that have been good to me over the years, especially in racing. And episode 214 will go over Richmond weekend, WRC, Formula E, go over those. We'll also talk about and preview Japanese Grand Prix. We'll preview everything else going on in the world of motorsports. And we'll be back next week for the GSP. We thank you for listening and supporting, and we'll see you next time.